Happy New Year, folks, and welcome back to #AskGSM, episode 527 here today for Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024. Gotta get used to saying that. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well, having a great week, having a great year so far. It's only our third day out here, but so far, so good. If you want to send in a question into the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below on the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Let's get right into it here. Mike does it from YouTube. The first question was, do you think WWE forced Daniel Bryan to retire in 2015 to 2018 to get Roman Reigns more over? With Bryan in the way, Roman would have never had the chance to take John Cena's top spot. With Bryan and his popularity at the time, and all the doctors said Bryan was good to wrestle, except for the WWE doctors. Is this a conspiracy theory? Maybe. What do you think? I feel like we're back in 2018, 2016, 2017 answering this question. I'm sure I've answered this before many years ago. The answer is resounding no. WWE definitely did not intentionally retire Daniel Bryan. I understand where you might be getting that from, like, if you're overly thinking about it, if you were watching the product at the time. It sounds even more ridiculous in retrospect, but even at the time, you got to take your tinfoil hat off. That was definitely not the case. They definitely did not intentionally retire Daniel Bryan and not clear him just for the sole purpose of getting Roman Reigns over. Because guess what? There were other people over at that time, and they were not just going to keep Daniel Bryan sidelined just because they thought Roman Reigns... I mean, even with Daniel Bryan gone, Roman Reigns was not more over. They tried to get him over by beating The Undertaker at WrestleMania 33. People booed him out of the fucking building. They had him beat this guy and that guy and beat Brock Lesnar and all this other sort of shit, and it didn't make a lick of a difference. So, Daniel Bryan being there or not didn't matter. People still did not like Roman Reigns in that role. So, no, they did not intentionally not clear Daniel Bryan just to get Roman Reigns over. That would be ridiculous. Their second question, I went back and listened to the Colt Cabana podcast with CM Punk on it. If CM Punk got his main event match at WrestleMania 29 with Cena versus The Rock versus Punk, and it was a triple threat match, do you think he still would have stayed in WWE and never left, or he still would have left and returned later in the future? I do think he would have left. That's a great question, because I've said this before, like, what if certain things were different back in 2013? But you said you listened to the podcast. There were a lot of instances, aside from him not being in the main event of WrestleMania, that really pissed him off. That might have put him over the edge, but it wasn't enough to, like, make him leave. I mean, the rumor was, was it before Mania 29 that he was, like, mad at WWE, and I think that was real. Before 29, that he wasn't in the main event of WrestleMania, and he was upset creatively, blah, 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 coming off his title reign. I mean, he ended up staying for another year, practically. He didn't walk out of the company until early 2014. He clearly had a whole litany of issues with Vince and Triple H leading up to when he walked out in early 2014, beyond just him not being in the main event of WrestleMania. It was obviously a factor. He talked a lot about it in said podcast, but it was like them denying him opportunities and not booking him correctly, putting him up against part-timers and constantly losing, him being injured, which probably still would have happened, main event or not. So I don't think he would have not walked out had he been in the main event of WrestleMania 29. It would have been one less thing for him to complain about, but if it wasn't that, it probably would have been something else. Punk was clearly checked out at that point, so no. I mean, if there were a lot of other things that went differently, yes, he could have stayed, and he probably would have ended up leaving soon after and then coming back, and probably would have been back by now if I had to take a guess. He could have stayed longer than he did in 2014, maybe left, I don't know, maybe a little bit later on in 2014, or when his contract was supposed to expire in the summer of 2014, or in 2015, 2016, what have you. He could have left and then come back within a year or two or 4 years later, and he still would have been back before he returned in 2013 or 2023, which is crazy to think about. His second question, or third question rather, where do we go from here? Should WWE do The Rock versus Roman Reigns at Elimination Chamber and do Cody Rhodes versus Roman at WrestleMania 40 and allow Cody to still finish the story? So here's the $1 million question for this week. There were a bunch of other questions about this, kind of looking through the document here. I did put together the document this week. I did, so I'm not disorganized. I'm looking to see who else asked about this. So at Reborn Again, John Ritland asked, so Rock pretty much confirmed you'll face Roman, but do they do it at Mania or perhaps Elimination Chamber in Australia? Let's see. There were a couple other questions. At noob_n_co, your thoughts on The Rock calling out Roman Reigns on Raw. I don't want the match taking place at WrestleMania 40. Just have the match at Elimination Chamber. And I think there was one more. I think Noel maybe from Facebook. Yeah, do you see The Rock versus Roman Reigns at the Chamber pay-per-view, or are they just going to take away Cody's WrestleMania moment? Here's my thoughts on it. I'll go in more in depth with it tomorrow. I'm going to talk more in depth about it today than I did on Raw Talk yesterday, and I'll probably go more in detail with RJ tomorrow on WrestleRant Radio. They need to do the match at Elimination Chamber. They should not wait until WrestleMania 40. Is Rock versus Roman Reigns a WrestleMania-worthy match? Yes. But they did this to themselves. They could have done the match already at WrestleMania 39, 38, 37, and they chose not to. And specifically, it wasn't really WWE's fault. It's The Rock's fault. The Rock clearly, as I've said before, prioritizes his Hollywood and acting career and other commitments and other stuff he's got going on over wrestling. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you can't come in now in 2024 and say, hey, I'm ready to do the match, and we already have plans lined up for WrestleMania. That would fuck up Cody and Roman at WrestleMania. And anyone saying, well, you just hold off on the moment. You do Cody and Roman at another pay-per-view or at SummerSlam or WrestleMania 41. God forbid. God fucking no thanks. That would be terrible. It is a terrible idea to do that match at WrestleMania for a variety of reasons. One, the match will probably not be that good. And that's coming from someone who wants to see the match. I still want to see the match, but I think we can get both. We can all get what we want here. I know some people want it at WrestleMania, so maybe necessarily not. But we can get the match, just not at WrestleMania. Elimination Chamber is not in front of 5,000 people in Poughkeepsie, New York. This is a 70,000-person arena in Australia. It is a massive show on the same level as Clash of the Castle, as their Money in the Bank show last year. This is a very big show. It's not just your typical throwaway Road to WrestleMania show. Even last year was not, and that was in front of 10,000 people in Montreal, but that was a big show and one of the best B pay-per-views they've ever done. But this is a massive stadium show, so The Rock main eventing that show with Roman Reigns, there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, it'll air at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning Eastern Time. Who gives a shit? I'd rather them do that than not do the match at all. And people also being in my mentions, which is fine, people have their own opinions on this. Well, you can't do it, on this Elimination Chamber show if WrestleMania is so close. Listen, I would have wanted the match at WrestleMania too if they did it at 38 or 39. 39, I would have still had an issue with it because I think Cody should have gotten the match last year as well. Cody should have beaten Roman Reigns last year. Honestly, this could have all been avoided if they just did the match 2 years ago at WrestleMania 38. Rock and Brock did not need to happen again at WrestleMania. I know they had a story with them leading into WrestleMania. The whole unification bullshit did not need to happen. They did not need to unify the championships. They did not need to do Roman and Brock again. Of all the matches they had in that time between Crown Jewel, Mania, and SummerSlam, that was the weakest one, was at WrestleMania. That match did not need to happen. It did not need to main event that pay-per-view. It could have been Rock and Roman, and Rock could have beaten Roman Reigns. And it would not have been that difficult to set it up. If Rock was able to appear, he could have shown up at Survivor Series or planted the seed for a Mania match with Roman Reigns on the 25th anniversary show for The Rock, a show that he wasn't even on. And I don't blame him I don't blame him or resent him for not being there, but because they never even advertised him for that show. I know we're going on like a 2+ year pay-per-view now. But I'm just saying, if he did appear on that show and he wasn't busy, he could have clearly planted the seeds for a future Mania matchup with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 38, but they missed the boat. Rock specifically dropped the ball by not appearing sooner and instead waiting until 2024 to do the match. If you want to do the match now, cool. It's got to happen at Elimination Chamber. Royal Rumble's already booked. Rock and Roman at the Rumble would have been fine, but that's at a random Tampa show. I mean, that's not even a stadium show. The Rumble's a bigger show than Chamber, but Chamber's going to be far bigger in terms of the scope and the atmosphere. You want as big of a crowd for that as possible. Mania will have a bigger crowd across 2 nights, I get it. But if you do Rock and Roman at WrestleMania, it's main eventing, and it should not fucking main event. Rock and Roman will not be on the road to WrestleMania to promote that matchup. You want that match in Mania, and Rock and Roman won't even be around to set it up. They might encounter each other twice. I know Roman and Cody had maybe 1 or 2, possibly 3 face-offs between Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania. But Cody was on the show every fucking week. Roman may not have been, but he was also there. He was also on Smackdown doing other stuff. Roman was not on every week, but he was on enough to promote the match. Rock's not even around. You need someone in that spot to promote the match. And we're not dealing with this shit from last year, and I said this last year as well, to do one match on one night and the other match on the other night. No fucking thanks, because that's the other issue. We know The Rock is not winning. The man has literally said it in interview after interview for the past 10 fucking years. If he were to have another match, he would want to come back and do the honors for Roman Reigns. Rock is not going in there and becoming champion. I don't care what he said on the interview with Pat McAfee last year. Oh, what if WrestleMania, instead of being the end of something, was the beginning of something? No, you already did that with John Cena 10 years ago. We didn't need the rematch then, and we don't need a rematch now. We don't need to do Rock and Roman twice. The match the first time might not even be that good. The Cena match, I thoroughly enjoyed, the first one. The second one was a fucking disaster. And that was 10 years ago. He got hurt in that match. He's 10 years older. 11 years older, actually. No thanks. Like, again, if you want to do the match and have it be a subpar match, at least you can ruin the Elimination Chamber main event. Do not ruin WrestleMania for the sake, and then also simultaneously push back Cody Rhodes' WrestleMania moment. You know if they don't do it at WrestleMania 30, or rather, they didn't do it at WrestleMania 39 either. You know if they don't have Cody beat Roman at WrestleMania 40, they're just going to wait another year. They're not going to do it at Backlash, and they shouldn't. SummerSlam is an option. But at this point, SummerSlam probably will not be a massive stadium show either, which is weird. I know it was 2 years ago, but they didn't do it for WrestleMania or SummerSlam 2022 or SummerSlam 2023. I don't know why. It was in a random... I mean, they were in bigger football stadiums, were those two shows, but they weren't nearly as big as like WrestleMania or the Australia show, the Berlin show, the Paris show, all these other sort of shows. They were fine, solid stadium shows, but not nearly as big as the other ones. Like some of these international shows with better attendance and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't think they would do it at SummerSlam. I don't think they would do it in Paris. They would have to probably wait until WrestleMania 41. And I'm not sitting through another year of a Roman Reigns run. And if you're going to sit there and tell me, and everyone who has tried to defend them doing this match at WrestleMania, most people, not everyone, but most people I should say, I don't want to generalize. Most people have said, well, it's because they want to keep the Roman Reigns run going until he breaks Hogan's record. Who cares? Who gives a fuck about the Hogan record at this point? Not many people care about Hulk Hogan in 2024 as it is. But the record itself, who gives a shit? The record was from 40 plus years ago. Roman is already the longest reigning champion of the modern era. If he beats Hogan's, first or second reign? I know he's breaking one of his reigns this coming month, in January. I know that, cool, whatever. I was already expecting Roman, even a year ago, to hold the championship through Mania. Fine. Him breaking Hogan's other record. He already broke Hogan's record. He will break Hogan's other record this month. His other record that's slightly longer, that he'll break in September, I think that would move Roman from 4th to 3rd on the list of longest reigning world champions in this company's history, behind Sammartino and Backlund. I think Backlund may have had 2 runs. One was longer than... both of them might have been longer than Roman's. I don't remember. It might have just been one run from Backlund. I'd have to look it up. My point is, it doesn't matter. He's going from 4th to 3rd. What did he fucking do? He's not breaking Sammartino's record. He should not break Sammartino's record. It's a different time. If they want to polish off these records, I mean, first of all, not a lot of people care about these records to begin with. I do. I think this stuff is cool, but even I'm telling you, this shit ain't worth it. To have a belt on Roman for 7 years coming at the expense of SmackDown, the championship, even the Roman Reigns character, the Bloodline stuff peaked a year ago. The Jey Uso feud, hate to break it to you people, did not need the championship. That actually made it more obvious that Roman was retaining. Jey Uso was never going to beat Roman for the championship on that show. There was a slight chance, I suppose, but it was a lot less likely he would do so if the championship was on the line. They were not going to end it at SummerSlam. They were going to end it at WrestleMania. He is running out of opponents to face. They should not be building up more people only to lose the Roman Reigns. It is doing damage to people that are actually over. Not that Roman's not over, but people on SmackDown like Randy, LA Knight, for example. My God. People like that, Jey Uso, that should become world champion and get their big moment, but they can't if they're on SmackDown if Roman Reigns is holding that championship hostage. He's holding the gold hostage. And dragging it on any further would be stupid. Doing it both at WrestleMania, Rock and Roman, and Cody and Rock, or Cody and Roman takes away from the other matchup. Roman should not have to divide his time between two people, especially with Rock, who's done nothing to earn an opportunity. And that match will not be non-title if Roman Reigns is champion. That makes no sense. That match also does not need the championship, but this all could have been avoided if you just did Cody beating Roman a year ago, taking that title, and doing Roman and Rock this year non-championship. Non-title! It would have been very easy, but they did this. WWE did this to themselves, and The Rock also did this to himself by waiting this long to do the match. Why? They could have done it 2 years ago. I'm sorry, he was filming fucking Red Notice 5 or Jumanji 6. Like, who cares? I love Rock. I do. That promo on Monday was not good. The overall lame shtick has gotten old with him and the douchebag stuff. It's fun. It's cute. I like it. I like whenever Rock comes back. I do. It's always a great moment. He would really need to be motivated to go out there and deliver some good promos. Making fun of Roman Reigns' penis or something is not quality material for a Roman-Rock feud. The match will probably not be that good. It wouldn't have been that good 5 years ago, but especially in 2024, it's not going to be that good. Rock was gassed doing a fucking promo on Monday. Could you imagine him having a 20-minute match with this man? And last thing on this subject, I'll probably talk more about it tomorrow, like I said, with RJ and WrestleRant Radio. A triple threat would also be a bad idea. I said this last year, and I'll say it again. Cody and Rock have no issues with each other. They only have issues with Roman Reigns. And you shouldn't turn Cody heel. That would be stupid. Rock is not turning heel. A heel Rock might be entertaining. That might be way more entertaining than what we're getting right now from The Rock, but that's probably not happening either. He probably doesn't want to hurt his brand or his reputation. He just doesn't feel comfortable. I don't know. And he's also way too over to probably turn heel at this point anyway. The match wouldn't be that good. The Rock would have to be carried through it. It might protect him more if it's a triple threat. I guess you can make that argument. But Rock coming back should be in a singles match. That's the big money match, him being in a singles match, not a fucking triple threat. Whatever match Rock wrestles next will be his last, and it should be against Roman, and Roman should win. And it should not, at this WrestleMania, be at WrestleMania. And you're not waiting another year. People thinking, oh, they can wait another... You're not waiting with either one of these matches. You have to do them both soon. Rock and Roman is not happening at SummerSlam either. What if Rock has another project? I really don't think they're doing it at SummerSlam. I would be surprised. In the 12 years Rock, 13 years now almost, that Rock's been back with WWE making appearances and whatever, he has actually never once appeared or wrestled at SummerSlam. Survivor Series, yes. WrestleMania, yes. Royal Rumble, even Elimination Chamber. He has never appeared or wrestled at SummerSlam since 2002. And I know SummerSlam's obviously bigger than Survivor Series, but Survivor Series in 2011 he appeared there because that was the big 15-year anniversary of The Rock. That one he actually appeared on and wrestled on. 25, not so much. SummerSlam, that was just not a priority to him. I thought he might wrestle at SummerSlam 2015 with Ronda. They didn't do that match there either. The Rock is too busy. It's WrestleMania for him or bust. I know it's not, I know that counts Elimination Chamber, but that's WrestleMania season. That's a big enough show. It's going to be a stadium show. You want a big main event for that show. If you don't do Rock and Roman on that show, what's the main event? Him and AJ Styles? Roman and AJ sounds cool. That's not an Elimination Chamber main event. I guess you could headline the show with... I mean, Roman probably isn't even advertised for that pay-per-view as of right now, but he fucking should be. That'd be stupid if he's not. I guess you could close with the Elimination Chamber match itself. I guess. I don't think Rollins is retaining or defending inside the Elimination Chamber, and he shouldn't. That would be silly. He should be champion going into WrestleMania, not surviving Elimination Chamber. That would be dumb. The Chamber match for the men should be a number one contenders match for the Universal Championship, and Cody Rhodes winning, while Rock faces Roman on that pay-per-view. That's the way to do it. And CM Punk winning the Royal Rumble, and maybe doing something with Rollins at Elimination Chamber. I don't know what that would be, but there's a lot of options there. That's all I got to say on the matter for now. I know that was a lot, but I do not want to see Rock and Roman at Mania. I feel like that'd be a massive disappointment. Yes, it's a WrestleMania-worthy match, but we can't... Any other year, maybe, but this year, it's Cody's moment. We're not delaying this Roman Reigns bullshit for another year, for another 6 months, for another 2 days. He is dropping that belt to WrestleMania, and we are moving on. It's also more unpredictable, too, to do Cody and Roman 2 at that show, because there's a pretty decent chance Roman could retain, for the reason I mentioned earlier, for him to break another record that no one gives a fuck about at this point. It's doing way more damage than good just to put 1,000 days on a t-shirt. Who gives a shit? Who cares? He should have beaten Cody a year ago, and Cody, if he didn't do it last year, it would be egregious for Cody to lose again. Is he going to beat Roman a third time? At that point, he'll get the John Cena treatment. People will be sick of Roman Reigns, they already are sick of Roman Reigns. They're going to be sick of Cody Rhodes. They're just going to want to get that shit over with, and the moment will mean nothing. The moment this year will be cool. It honestly wouldn't mean as much as it did a year ago when Cody should have beaten him the first time. Because at least at that point, it was a bit more unpredictable, and... I don't know. I mean, I said this last year, when you do the match a second time, it's a bit more predictable. That doesn't mean they shouldn't have Cody Rhodes beat Roman Reigns, but it's just, that's what they did. That's what they did by having Cody wait a year to do the moment after losing the first time. That was stupid. Roman was ready to drop the title a year ago. The Bloodline story was ready to progress beyond the championship a year ago. They didn't pull the trigger. To wait another year, and that didn't do a lot of damage to Cody. It really didn't. He rebounded. He's still over. He's picking up wins, beating Brock Lesnar, blah, blah, blah. If Cody goes in there again at Mania and loses, that will do damage. He will look like the biggest fucking loser for falling twice at WrestleMania. What a loser he would be. He'd also be a loser if Rock got that spot instead and Cody went on to face who, Drew McIntyre or something? I mean, that sounds cool, but that's not worthy of Cody's time. Cody should be going for the championship in Mania. We're not waiting any longer to do Cody and Roman at WrestleMania 40, 41, 50. Finish the fucking story so we can fucking move on. Next question, Chris W. from YouTube. Their first question was, your thoughts on Michael Bay and the Transformers movies as a whole? I think he's absolutely dismal as a director in the movies to be awful. In fact, seeing Transformers Revenge of the Fallen in 2009 was one of the most excruciating, miserable experiences I've ever had at the theaters. What say you? I have never seen a Transformer movie in whole, ever. I don't think I've never seen a Transformers movie in its entirety. That includes the Shia LaBeouf movies, that includes the recent movies. I don't really have much of a desire. Alexis really liked those early ones, and she said, we should go back and watch them. So I'll give them a shot. I will watch those Michael Bay Transformers movies. Bumblebee and the ones that came out in recent years, I don't know. I mean, those don't really do a lot for me. I might just watch them to see how they are and to say that I watched them. I'm not sure. I don't really give a fuck about Transformers. I used to watch, I think, the Transformers show maybe on whatever channel that was before school when I was in middle school or fucking elementary school. I don't remember. But, I'm not really a Transformers fan, so I don't really care about the movies. I heard the early ones were fun for the times. I'd have to go back and check them out, but no, I've never seen a Transformers movie in its entirety. His second question, say Impact finally does get a TV deal on a big network and no longer exists on Access TV. Which of these do you think would make a good place to own their rights and broadcast their weekly shows? MTV, Vice TV, or Sci-Fi? I think Vice would be a good fit since their channel has a long history of wrestling with Dark Side of the Ring and the Wrestlers documentary. Not to mention they air Women of Wrestling weekly. What do you think? Yeah, Impact needs to get a bigger TV deal. I really enjoy the Impact product. I don't know about this whole WWE working with them or buying them thing that people seem to be buzzing about right now. It's not impossible. That would be pretty cool, actually. I'll talk more about that tomorrow on WrestleRant Radio. But if that doesn't happen, and they still need a bigger network regardless, what network would be better? MTV? No. I've never watched MTV once. Not that you should base where they go based on my own viewing preferences, but does anyone even really watch MTV in 2024? I guess you could say the same thing about Sci-Fi as well. But Sci-Fi would be a bigger network than Access. I mean, Smackdown was on Sci-Fi for a very long time, so Sci-Fi could work. Sci-Fi might get higher viewership than Vice. I mean, whatever channel has the higher viewership, really. I don't know what the viewership is for Sci-Fi and how many people get it in their homes compared to Vice, but I would probably go Sci-Fi if it has more viewership. Vice would make sense, though, with, like you said, the Dark Side of the Ring and the wrestler stuff. I know MLW tried to work something out with Vice. Vice Land, whatever, a couple years ago, they aired one of their specials on their channel back in late 2021, and then nothing. That was pretty much it for them, which was strange. So yeah, I think Vice would work, because wrestling fans already watch the channel for some other wrestling content they've done. I think Impact on Vice would be cool. It's definitely a step up from Access, which I know Access, their parent company, owns Impact, but just no one watches Access. I don't even know if I get Access. I know New Japan was on there, and that's cool for them, but Impact in the States is bigger than New Japan and should have a bigger platform than Access. I just watch Impact on the YouTube channel and subscribe to their channel, like the members one or whatever it is, that tier of a channel. It's like $1 a month. I subscribe to it, pay the $1 a month, and I can watch Impact with ease on YouTube. It's actually easier for me to watch it on YouTube, so I can go back and forth and whatever. But if they go to a bigger network for more exposure, it should probably be Vice, unless Sci-Fi does better viewership. I'm not sure what the numbers are there. His next question. Julia Hart somewhat botched the moonsault in her match with Abaddon, but Casey Catanzaro botches her finisher against Chelsea Green and Piper Niven 2 weeks ago, and no one said a peep. I honestly don't even remember that. Not to mention the other time Charlotte Flair hit her moonsault and botches the landing. Is it because one was more noticeable, or is it because of double standards? A couple reasons. I don't really know what you're talking about, the Casey one. She probably did botch it. I wasn't paying attention. And that's part of my reasoning. No one was probably watching the Casey Cat. I mean, I guess you said Chelsea and Piper, so that was the women's tag team title match. I don't really give a shit about Abaddon, but I think more people were watching the Julia Abaddon match because that was a TBS championship match on pay-per-view, so it was more noticeable. That one was more noticeable because it was on pay-per-view and it was the finish of the match. The Casey one, I watched the match. I don't really remember the finish. I just don't give a fuck about the women's tag teams division matches. I just don't. I like the women. No disrespect to them. No one cares about those women's tag team titles. That's a shoot. I don't really remember the finish. So yeah, the Julia one was more noticeable. But it's not double standards. I mean, if there are double standards with people only complaining about AEW and not WWE, then yeah, that's an issue. And there are people out there like that. I'm not denying that. With Julia Hart, she nails it mostly every time. And I've said this before, Julia Hart's moonsault looks great. She's improved a lot. Charlotte Flair's moonsault, that ain't double standards. We know that looks like shit. Because every time she goes for it, 9 out of 10 times, it looks like garbage. And I like Charlotte, but it always looks like trash. Every fucking time. So she's got to stop doing it or tweak it, but it's been so long now, she probably won't. I don't know. It's definitely not double standards because I think when Charlotte hits a bad moonsault, people call her out for it. If the Julia one looked bad and that was the finish and she just pinned her anyway, they probably should have redone it. That was stupid, or pinned Abaddon. That is not her. She's they. That's the pronoun she uses. I apologize. Julia pinned Abaddon. She pinned them anyway. So, I mean, that looked bad, but the Charlotte one always looks bad. I wouldn't give Julia too much flack. I mean, you got to call a spade, I get it, but Charlotte botches her moonsault constantly. Casey and Kaden seem to be pretty decent and consistent with their finisher or whatever. Charlotte's just looks fucking terrible almost all the time. And it always has, and that probably won't change. Next question from him, his last question here from YouTube. Which promotion do you think got the worst end of the stick during the pandemic era? Good question. Probably WWE. Because I feel like with WWE shows, even more than AEW maybe early on, it was all about the audience and the energy compared to the WWE shows where the crowds were just fucking quiet. But I feel like WWE is more about the grandeur and the pomp and circumstance and the pyro and the crowds and shit like that, especially when it comes to WrestleMania. I mean, WrestleMania 36, they did what they could, but I think Mania suffered more in 36. In 2020, Mania 36 suffered more than Double or Nothing, for example. Because Double or Nothing, they didn't really have anyone there aside from the people that worked there, I think. But that still ended up being a pretty good show because they worked around the circumstances, did some cinematic stuff with like the Stadium Stampede and whatever, and they just kind of focused on the wrestling. WWE has good wrestling as well. There were a lot of good matches during that pandemic period, but like especially pre-Thunderdome, Daly's Place looked like a much better venue to do wrestling than the Performance Center. That just looked terrible. It was an awful environment, having the NXT people there banging on the fucking window. That was annoying, like the glass panels that they had. They did what they could. I thought I was watching a hockey game. I don't hate hockey, but that's not why I watch wrestling. They definitely suffered. I mean, the WWE product, they did what they could, but they also did a lot of goofy, dumb shit as well. Not that AEW was perfect. I thought AEW just had the better product. I mean, it's kind of comparing apples to oranges because I don't know. The AEW product I thought was just far better because both were almost unwatchable, no fans. I get it. It's really the lesser of two evils and what really you prefer. But they were doing some pretty dumb shit with like Alexa Bliss, some other dumb crap they were doing during the pandemic era that I'm so glad they moved on from because they had no one to complain about it aside from online. If it went over in the arena like a fart in church, then it's not working. But inside the arena, Vince McMahon could have done whatever he wanted and it wouldn't have mattered. I'm honestly surprised they didn't do dumber stuff during that period. I'm honestly very shocked because had they done more dumb stuff, it wouldn't have mattered. And people weren't watching the show anyway. The ratings went down because there were no fans. And people would have complained online regardless. So they actually did better than I thought they would. But which company suffered more? I would say WWE. No L from Facebook. Their question was, the Rock and Roman thing I already answered. Thoughts on the whole devil reveal being Adam Cole. Was it good or okay? No, I thought it was great. I thought it was well done. I liked the execution. I liked the fact it was Adam Cole. I said before, the only outcome of that angle that would have been satisfying for me was Adam Cole. Because he lost to MJF. He got hurt. He's got nothing to lose now. The only issue I had with it being Adam Cole was that he was going to be out for the foreseeable future. So if he's out for the foreseeable future, I mean, what do you really... I don't know. I don't know what you really... I mean, that's another question I'll answer later on from someone else. How do you sustain the momentum if you can't work? And MJF will also be out for the foreseeable future. It's not like MJF working through his, working his way through the group and first facing Roddy and then Wardlow and the Kingdom, blah, blah, blah. He can't even do that soon right now because it sounds like MJF will be out for a while rehabbing his nursing his injuries. So what do you really do in the meantime with him? That's the question. But I did like the reveal. I thought it closed the show on a high note. Joe as the AEW World Champion is the right call. I like that whole thing a lot. So we'll see where they go with it. Chris L. from Facebook, his first question was, he says, "Hey, Graham, hope you had a great New Year's Eve." Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. You as well. He says, "What's your opinion on the Trick Williams-Carmelo Hayes storyline right now? I'm intrigued by it, but I feel they're starting to repeat themselves, and the execution is getting a little too silly, making it lose a little too much of the emotional investment for the eventual turn. Do you think it's running out of steam and is being dragged out, or do you think it's all part of the plan to put over Trick when he eventually defeats Carmelo at Stand and Deliver and Melo heads off to SmackDown the Friday after WrestleMania?" I don't think Melo goes to Smack. I mean, that would be cool. That would have been ideal a few years ago. It sounds like they're kind of holding off on the NXT call-ups and the post-WrestleManias shows and whatever. I mean, they don't have a post-WrestleMania SmackDown in front of the same Mania fans anymore. It's in a whole other city with the way they tape SmackDown now. So it wouldn't even be the same as it would have been like a couple of years ago when they were taping SmackDown on Tuesdays. But with Melo, I think they kind of hold off with the NXT call-ups until the draft now. So I'm not even really sure that would happen anyway. He probably will lose the Trick and then get drafted either Raw or SmackDown soon after. Preferably SmackDown. But back to the other main part of your question. Yes and no. I do think it's losing steam. And I was okay with them dragging it out until now because I thought the turn would happen last night. I have no idea what happened with the Ilya thing. I think that's a storyline injury. I don't know why they would advertise the match and then cancel it the night of. That is fucking stupid. That is bait and switch bullshit. I thought Ilya would still come out. He didn't. Ilya wasn't on the show at all. He got injured in storyline 2 weeks ago. Ilya still said last week, "I can still go." And then they did the old bait and switch up until the show itself. That was bullshit. That was very dumb. I looked forward to that show. I looked forward to that match, and they didn't even fucking do it. They're probably holding off on the match until Vengeance Day for creative reasons. Then you wait until Vengeance Day. Don't promote it for fucking New Year's Evil. Assuming that's the case, I thought that was very dumb. Unless Ilya is actually injured, and that's why they did it. I don't know. But I thought that was so stupid. I thought the turn would happen last night. It did not. It sounds like they're going to do the match at Stand and Deliver, or not Stand and Deliver. They'll do it at Vengeance Day with Trick and Ilya. Ilya will win. Clean, or Carmelo will help, whatever. And then they'll do Carmelo and Trick at Stand and Deliver. What I thought would happen was that Carmelo would turn on Trick last night. They would have their first match at Vengeance Day. Carmelo would win, and then Trick would come back in a rematch and win the rematch at Stand and Deliver. That's probably what I would have done, because they've been dragging on this story for a very long time now. When they do the turn, I feel like it is a month too late if they do it next month. It's not a year later, but it is dragging it on a little too long because we all know where it's going. It's pretty obvious at this point. I've enjoyed the storyline, but yeah, they are dragging it on at this point. I feel like it kind of reached this peak as of like last night. The last night's stuff was ridiculous. Like, why advertise the match and it looked like Carmelo was going to turn on him anyway? At this point, it's just predictable and lame. Get to it already so we can move on to the next chapter. His next question: how do you see the Devil storyline picking up after the pay-per-view? Like I said, I love the reveal. I love the fact it was Adam Cole. I like the little group he's got going on right now. My only issue with it is, my only concern, Adam Cole can't work for a little while. I heard he won't be out. He won't be back for a while in the ring. MJF may not be back for another month or two. So what do you do for the next month with them? Do they just come out and cut promos? Do they have other... I guess they have other enemies in like MJF and the Acclaimed and stuff. So, not MJF, Adam Page. Because they attacked Adam Page and put him through a car windshield a couple of months ago, or about a month or so ago. So you could do that and kind of keep them busy with that until MJF comes back. That's probably their best bet, because I'm not really sure what else they do right now. I know there's other members of the group that can wrestle for Adam Cole in the meantime. The Kingdom, Wardlow, Roddy, but they're not the Devil. The biggest star of that group is Adam Cole, and he should be the one working with MJF and being in the ring and whatever. You can't really build anything around an injured guy for right now. That's the disappointing part. So, I don't really know how they keep the momentum going coming into that reveal. It's probably him working with Adam Page. And when I say him, not Cole because he can't work, probably Roddy. And I think Roddy already lost to Page a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite, so you'll have to run that back. And probably Wardlow and Page. That might be the other option they can go with for right now until MJF comes back. Next question, also from Chris. According to multiple reports, Mercedes Moné and Deonna Purrazzo are both expected to show up in AEW any day now, probably tonight. Who do you see both women going after when they arrive. I think it would be way too early to take the belts off of both Julia Hart or Timeless Toni Storm, but both need rivalries right now out of the gate. What do you think, or who do you think both should go after for Revolution? I don't think they would both be on Revolution, and I kind of feel bad for Deonna. I think Deonna's great. I think they're both great. If Deonna goes to AEW as well, I mean, AEW could use more top-tier women. They already have a lot of women they're not doing anything with. I mean, Deonna's kind of in the Taya Valkyrie spot where if she comes in, I honestly feel like they would give her a bunch of title shots and work with all these women. She would lose, and then she would probably end up right back up in fucking Ring of Honor or some shit. I mean, that's a waste of Deonna. At that point, I'd rather her just go to WWE, in my opinion. Mercedes is a far bigger star, so she would probably be used consistently and not be relegated to Ring of Honor, God forbid. I think Mercedes is pretty much a lock at this point to go to AEW based off that report from a couple days ago. If she doesn't show up tonight, then she's just playing games as far as where she wants to go and who she ends up signing with. She could go to TNA for all we know next weekend and be the big signing that Scott D'Amore was talking about. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. With Deonna, I don't have a lot of faith that if she goes there that she'll be spotlighted. She might get a good run and have a little nice run for herself, and she does deserve a bigger platform than Impact, which she has dominated in the past 3-4 years. But especially if Mercedes comes in simultaneously, she's probably not going to be doing much. She may not be showing up a lot. She might have a couple matches and then disappear. That's what I kind of fear for Deonna. Mercedes might be a safer bet because she is a bigger star. They're not going to keep her off the show for a month or two. I mean, I guess they could. That would be fucking dumb, and I wouldn't put it past Tony Khan. But I have more faith in them booking Mercedes correctly than Deonna Purrazzo. As far as feuds, I don't know. I agree. I don't want them taking the belts right away from Timeless Toni Storm or Julia Hart. I mean, Britt Baker would make sense. Britt Baker and Deonna. I mean, I know they're friends. Britt was a babyface the last time we saw her. I don't know if she would be involved in this whole devil thing. But Britt would be fine when Britt comes back. Thunder Rosa isn't doing anything right now unless Thunder Rosa is Julia Hart's next opponent. Thunder Rosa and Mercedes would be awesome. Deonna Purrazzo and Thunder Rosa would be cool. Or Chris Statlander, but it looks like they might be turning her heel and aligning her with Stokely, which is an interesting choice. Chris Statlander or Willow I know Willow actually beat Mercedes, and Mercedes got hurt. Mercedes would have won, but Willow beat her because Mercedes got hurt. You could go off of that and have them feud. That would make sense. I wouldn't have them feud with each other because they both need wins off the bat, Mercedes and Deonna. I wouldn't do that, but at some point that would be a good match to do. Chris Statlander versus either one of them, like I said, would be nice. So they have options, but I just don't have a lot of faith that AEW is going to book them both, but specifically Deonna properly. And Mercedes is a bigger star. She doesn't have a lot to lose. Deonna, I feel like she would have been great in AEW 2 or 3 years ago. She probably should have left Impact sooner because now they have even more women that they're not doing anything with. They've just racked up a lot of women they're not doing shit with. Taya being one of them. I mean, Thunder, she's been cleared for a while. They only brought her back to Collision a week or two ago. What the fuck was going on there? And then Jamie Hayter comes back. I mean, they have a lot of great women. It's not like they have a bad division. It's more a matter of how they handle that division and what they do with the talent they have. That's the question. Their next question, what are your 10 favorite matches of 2023? I mean, I can't sit here and give you a whole fucking, 10 matches. Honestly, any nominee that was in the 2023 Match of the Year on WrestleRant for the Year in Review Awards, I listed off the nominees in the clip that I put up here on the channel last week. You can listen to that and you can hear basically what my 10 favorite matches of the year were. Either of the Omega Ospreay matches were great. The Bullet Club FTR matches both were great. Those might be among my favorite. Bryan and MJF is my match of the year from Revolution. Iron Man, 60 minutes, AEW World Championship, excellent match. Probably my match of the year. Those are all AEW stuff, but WWE had a lot of great matches too. Cody and Roman, I thought, had a great match up until the finish. Sami and Owens versus the Usos was excellent. Sami and Roman, the Triple Threat Intercontinental Championship match from WrestleMania was also outstanding. I'm trying to think what else. Owens and Zayn versus Judgment Day from Payback. Becky and Trish from Payback. Becky and Lyra from Halloween Havoc was great. Ilya and Carmella was also one of my favorite matches from, not Stand and Deliver, from No Mercy a couple of months ago. Awesome match. I have a lot of nominees. I mean, that's probably more than 10, so you can take that and run with it. But there was a lot of great matches last year. Let's see. I will be attending WrestleMania this year. This was his next question. He says, I will be attending WrestleMania this year in Philadelphia, my second time in this beautiful city, and my first WrestleMania. My first was 6 years ago for NXT TakeOver Philadelphia in the Royal Rumble, and I had an amazing experience. I was hoping to meet you. Where do you think you'll be on the day of night 2, and what is it like being at a WrestleMania? A couple things. Yes, I would love to meet up and meet you in person. That would be awesome. I met a couple people. I met a lot of people over Mania weekend last year, in the media, outside of the media, at the show itself. I think on night 2, because I remember getting back to my seat in time for the Intercontinental Championship Triple Threat, I met 3 different people that I already knew from like Twitter and stuff like that, and in social media, from Instagram, and just wrestling fans that I've known and have been friends with for a long time. Through social media, I met them for the first time in person, but I went to them. So I left the press box at I don't know, probably during the women's tag team match or something, I don't remember. And went from there to the medium, the middle of the stadium, went all the way to the top of the stadium, and then all the way back to the other side. It was wild. I met 3 different people, and it was great and worth it. My feet were fucking killing me. It was tough. I assume this year will be no different. The stadiums are huge, but listen, I love doing that sort of stuff. I love meeting people and finally meeting people that I've been friends with and talking to for a long time. At E13A, actually, who asked the question, Emmanuel, I've known him through Twitter for the past 10 plus years. I met him for the first time in person last year at WrestleMania. So stuff like that is always cool. That's actually one of the people I'm talking about that I had to go to the other side of the stadium to go meet last year. If I have to do the same thing this year, that's perfectly fine because I don't mind doing it, and I love the traveling and stuff like that. So Mania in person is fun. My first Mania was 33, probably still my favorite. I mean, all the Manias I've been to have been great. Have been good to great. The ones I've been to in the past couple of years have all been amazing. But the thing with those, and those were better shows, but I don't think you can beat your first Mania. RJ's first Mania was Mania 30, and Mania 30 is different. Mania 30 was way better than 33. But I think your first with Mania, with WrestleMania anyway, is usually your best. It's kind of hard to top that experience. Being there for the Hardy Boys return, and that set was beautiful. Mania this past year was incredible, and the 2 nights thing is cool because you kind of spread the love across 2 nights and the fun across 2 nights. But it's just a whole other experience. Even if it's not a great show, you still enjoy and remember and cherish that experience. So it's great. And I've actually been to Philly for a wrestling show as well. My first time in Philly, I don't know if I've been there twice actually. Technically 3 shows, but 2 times. My first was also that Rumble weekend 6 years ago. Crazy to think it's been 6 years, but 6 years ago for Rumble and TakeOver with RJ. We took a road trip to Philly, had a great time, knocked out both shows, had a great weekend. I didn't go back for another 4.5 years until Extreme Rules 2022, and we only went there, Alexis and I did. We only made the drive because we knew that Bray Wyatt was probably showing up, and I'm so glad we made that trip. Obviously, even more now in retrospect than at the time, but especially at the time as well. It was cool. It was special. It was well worthwhile. And we're 4.5 hours, 5 hours away from Philly. It's probably a 3.5 hour drive without traffic. That's how long it took getting home. But on the way there was at least 4.5 hours, maybe 5 with traffic. But it was worth it. It was well worth it. So I look forward to being back next year. WrestleMania coming back to the East Coast. I know they were here 5 years ago for the New York WrestleMania. We'll be able to drive this time. I mean, in New York, I wasn't fucking driving, but Philly will be a bit better, and I look forward to it. So I'll be around. As far as where I'm gonna be that weekend, that night of Mania. The day of, I'll probably be resting because I'll be busy the days leading up to WrestleMania. But Mania itself is usually quiet, and I'm gonna try to go to TakeOver this year, maybe. I didn't make it to TakeOver last year; it was just too much. So I'm gonna try to make it to TakeOver this coming year. That would be on night 1, the day of night 1. And then day 2, I'm usually there hours in advance. So if you're at Mania, you're going to Mania this year, would love to see you, whether I've seen you before or I haven't. Let me know, and let me know where you are, and I'll usually come to you, and we'll make it happen. At Iwagu91, their question was from Twitter, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well. I appreciate that. They say, Undertaker admitted that he's not a fan of the spinner belt used from 2005 to 2013. What are your thoughts? I don't blame him because most people weren't. I wasn't either. I mean, I liked it when I was a kid because I thought it looked cool. As an adult now, I think it looks dumb. And the fact they used it for 8 years was kind of ridiculous because it was kind of a John Cena-centric title. That's like them holding on to the Blueberry belt for AEW now that MJF's not champion. It just doesn't make sense. But the difference is that Blueberry belt, the Triple B as it's called, is far nicer than that spinner belt, in my opinion. I know people are nostalgic for it. I'm a little nostalgic for it, but I would much rather have the design that we have now, dumb colors and all, mustard colors and all, over that dumbass spinner belt that they had for 8 fucking years. That should have belonged in the trash far earlier than that, in my opinion. Do you see Andrade returning to WWE was the second question. I do. I thought he might show up on Monday. I was kind of hoping he would, because that would be amazing for him to go from AEW to WWE within 2 days, less than 2 days. That would have been nuts. In less than 48 hours, that would have sent quite the message. But he didn't. They're probably holding off on him coming in until the Rumble, or at least until they have a plan. He shouldn't just come back and do nothing, so that's another thing. He's got to come in and, maybe he faces Gunther at Elimination Chamber for the Intercontinental Championship. I'm not sure. I wouldn't involve him with the LWO stuff. Oh, he's Latino, got to put him in the LWO angle. No, not necessarily. I would just put him on Raw. I know Charlotte's on Smackdown, but she's hurt right now, so you can put Andrade on Raw, see how the draft shakes out, maybe draft Charlotte to Raw when she comes back. There's a lot of different things you can do. But yeah, I do think Andrade is coming back, and he's probably coming back at the Royal Rumble. Your current thoughts on Trick Williams, they ask. I love Trick Williams. I interviewed him a couple weeks ago here on the channel, on the show, WrestleRant Radio. Did the article on it before deadline. He's great. Trick Williams is great. He's improving a lot. He might be one of the best PC success stories they've ever had. Him and Tiffany Stratton both. They got a lot of charisma. They're good in the ring, connecting with the audience. Great character development, specifically Trick. He's killing it right now. So, yeah, Trick is going to be one of their future stars in the main roster, and hopefully a future NXT champion, but even if not, I could see him on the main roster by the end of the year. He's improved a lot. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine and on YouTube. Check out his work on YouTube's Ball. Real Honesty with John Ritland does awesome content. We just spoke, actually, cheap plug, a couple days ago, less than a week ago, for our best, worst, and pretty much every other movie in between here in the channel about, it went up on Saturday, so check it out. About a 2.5-hour podcast. Always a great time chatting with John. First time since last time we chatted about movies. So check it out. The best, worst, and pretty much every other movie we've seen in 2023. Discussing them at length on that podcast over the weekend. So check it out. Cheap plug. And his own list as well. Best and worst movies of 2023 over on his channel. We already talked about The Rock. I already answered that question. His second question was, who do you think faces Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania for the Women's World Championship? Also, whoever it is, do you see them beating her? I think it's Becky Lynch. I think they're keeping Becky busy in other feuds because the plan is to move her back into the title picture in time for Mania. Could you do Becky and Rhea at Elimination Chamber? Yes. Headlining, probably not at this point, if Rock and Roman are headlining, unfortunately, over Rhea and Becky. But they might not be doing Rhea and Becky at Elimination Chamber. You can do the first match at the Elimination Chamber, then have Becky avenge the loss. I mean, having Becky win at Chamber would be dumb. You can have Becky win the belt, or rather, not win, lose at Elimination Chamber, and then avenge the loss at Mania and beating Rhea there. Does she need the belt? Does she need to be beating Rhea? No. But if Rhea retains, what more do you have Rhea do? I've always said that Liv Morgan I would not count out completely. If she's good to go by Mania, Rhea and Liv, it's not like a sexy match on paper as much as Rhea and Becky. Becky's a much bigger star than Liv. But the match would make sense. We know they work well together. I would rather see Liv benefit from beating Rhea than Becky Lynch. But Becky hasn't been champion in about 2 years, so I wouldn't be upset. I mean, Raw Women's Champion, that is. I know she was NXT Women's Champion, Tag Team Champion. She hasn't been a main singles champion on the main roster since early 2022. So I'd be fine with her beating Rhea. I think she will beat Rhea. I wouldn't have an issue with her beating Rhea because it's been a year for Rhea at that point, and I do think it'll be a great match. His last question, non-wrestling related, have you seen the trailer for a horror movie called Night Swim? If so, are you planning to see it at all? I have seen the trailer. To me, it looks fucking stupid. I know we talked about it already, maybe on the podcast or before the podcast, I'm not sure. I did see the trailer. To me, it looks dumb. I do not plan on seeing it unless I hear it's a great movie. Probably not. Unless you really rave about it, John. John has, he has good taste in movies. So I know we don't always agree on every movie, but, usually his movies, if he says it's good, it's usually worth checking out. So if you like it, then I will, but otherwise, probably not. At Kyle Rochelle 19 from Twitter, their first question was, since Becky Lynch lost to Nia Jax on Raw, will Nia face Rhea Ripley at the Royal Rumble, or can Becky get a revenge and eliminate Nia in the Rumble match? I think that's more likely. I think Becky will eliminate Nia from the Rumble, not win it, but just eliminate her. I know people are thinking Nia might get eliminated by Jade Cargill. I could see that instead of Becky. Becky and Nia isn't over yet. They'll definitely go back to it and have Becky beat Nia soon. Rhea and Nia is possible for the Rumble. I mean, that is one possibility. I don't know how much farther you want to drag out that feud between Becky and Nia. But you could have done the first match on Monday, which they did. And then do Rhea, have Becky in the Rumble and she loses, obviously. But you do Rhea and Nia at the Rumble, Rhea wins. You do Rhea and Liv, if she's back by then in Elimination Chamber, she wins. I would feel bad for Liv because Liv would probably be booed because Rhea's from Australia, she's going to be a big star, blah, blah, blah. You could do that match there, and then she loses to Becky at WrestleMania. And also at Chamber, you can do the rematch between Becky and Nia, and that's where Becky finally gets her win over Nia. Again, I don't know how much longer you want to drag that out for, that feud between the two, but that is an option. That is something they can do. So, I could see them doing Nia and Rhea at the Rumble. I wouldn't. They already kind of tested that at Survivor Series, that whole heel versus heel thing, and it just didn't work. No one cared about Zoe Stark in Chicago for Survivor Series, so I wouldn't do it here either. It would be a fresh match, I guess. I think they've done the match before, I'm pretty sure, a couple of years ago, and it wasn't very good. Nia had a good match on Monday with Becky, but I don't want to see Nia and Rhea. I'd rather see Nia continue to rack up wins, remain unbeaten, so to speak, and then eventually lose to Becky so it means more at that point. I think that, to me, would make more sense. Their second question, can Io Sky have a voice? I love her as champion, but her reign since the summer has not been interesting. Is it a situation where I have to wait until she faces Bayley? If Io and Bayley have a match at Mania, that's the match for Mania. Who is the heel? I don't see Io as a heel. She's naturally likable. No, I think Bayley will be the babyface. Io is naturally likable, and when I was going to do the match originally, like 6 months ago, I was going to say turn Io because she could be a great breakout babyface. But they're telling the story that Bayley's going to be exiled from her own group, which in turn would make her the babyface in that situation. So I think Bayley will be the babyface. Bayley will win. I know Io, she could use the win more, but Bayley hasn't been champion in a while, and it would make more sense for the babyface to overcome the heel. I mean, not every babyface is winning at Mania. I make it sound like, oh, Chad Gable's beating this guy, and Cody's beating that guy, and Becky's winning. Like, everyone's not going to drop their championships, but it would make for a great moment. So, I mean, as far as Io, I've actually loved the reign. I know you said it hasn't been interesting. That's your opinion. I disagree. I've loved the Io reign. She's had a lot of great matches. I don't like that she's still feuding with fucking Bianca Belair. That's been going on for a hot minute. I'm done with that bullshit. But, the reign itself has been good. She's facing Michin on Friday, another fresh match for the championship. Her matches with Zelina, Charlotte, Bianca, multi-person matches have all been very good. She's had a lot of very good matches as champion. So I'm looking forward to Friday, and I've enjoyed her run, and I do think we're getting her and Bayley at Mania. Not a triple threat with Dakota, that's not necessary. Io and Bayley at Mania, to me, is the match to do. At the Average Grunt from Twitter, their question was, he says, hey, Graham, hope you had a great time during the holidays. You as well, Grunt, I appreciate it. He says, here's my first question of 2024. Hot or cold, 2009 WWE does not deserve the hate it gets, considering most of the crap was exclusive to Raw, while SmackDown and ECW were great, and even most of the pay-per-views were solid. That is a hot take. I don't agree with that. And I grew up on 09 WWE. 09 WWE had a lot of fucking bullshit, too. A lot of the crap was exclusive to Raw. Like, I'm thinking of the guest host stuff. Yes, that was on Raw. And that guest host shit was pretty bad. The Trump stuff was dumb. They had a lot of, like, dance segments, and oh my god. Like, those early PG years of WWE, going back, were not good. I would say from, like, 08 through... And there were parts of 2011 I loved. I loved 2011 WWE for the most part, just for nostalgia reasons. But 2010 was really bad for most of it. 09 was just the same fucking people on top. Cena and Orton. Cena and H. Orton and H. It was just the same thing. So, you're saying that the crap is exclusive to Raw. Legacy Orton was great. The Legacy was fun. But like the DX reunion I liked, the constant rematches with Cena and Orton and Triple H and Orton was just ad nauseum. Batista being in the main event picture, it was just never ending. On SmackDown, so you're saying Raw was shit, but SmackDown and ECW were great. What was ECW doing in 2009 that was so great? If ECW was so great, then why did it close down in early 2010? I know Christian was champion in 09. I enjoyed Christian's run. Swagger was champion for a while. Didn't care about that. Dreamer had a brief run. That was quick. I mean, Christian got the belt back. There was some good stuff on ECW, but I wouldn't say it was like must-see. I don't really remember much else about ECW in 09, aside from Regal being there, which I obviously loved, but I don't know if ECW was great. Let's not go that far. SmackDown, the Punk and Hardy stuff was great. I will give you that. But a lot of other stuff on SmackDown what else was SmackDown doing in 09 that was so great? The Edge and Hardy stuff earlier on in the year was okay. The Hardy versus Hardy feud, which kind of went off the deep end. Their matches were good, but the promos weren't really that good. What else were they even really doing? In late 09, it was like Punk and Taker. That was a quick feud. Taker was doing some fine stuff. Batista turned heel. So, I mean, there was worse stuff on Raw, but like beyond that stuff, though, what else was even really going on? Jericho and Ray was a great feud. I'll give you that. I think Jericho and Ray, I mean, 09 WWE is just not worth watching. It's just not. I don't like WrestleMania 25. Taker and Triple H was a great match, obviously. Or not Triple H. Taker and Shawn Michaels was one of the best ever, if not the best match ever. The rest of the show was not that good. Backlash was great. I loved Backlash and I loved Extreme Rules. But I remember nothing about Elimination Chamber. The Rumble's not a great show. SummerSlam is an okay show. Breaking Point was not a good show. Hell in the Cell was an okay show. Bragging Rights, Survivors, I mean, they're just forgettable shows. I don't really know what you're talking about. I mean, they're not awful pay-per-views, but they're not worth... I mean, I haven't gone back and watched any of those shows multiple times, except for the Extreme Rules show and Backlash. And that's it. And I'm nostalgic towards that period because I grew up on it. I got a whole Best of Raw or Best of WWE DVD from 09. And there's not a whole lot on it because there wasn't a whole lot of Best of stuff in 2009. I mean, it just was not a great year. So I would say it's a hot take because I don't agree with it. At noob_n_co TV. I think this is not the last question. We got a couple more questions. I got a lot more questions, actually. Oh, man. I already answered the Rock and Roman thing. Your second question was, your thoughts on the TV unification match that will take place at NWA Paranoia. As a wrestling fan, I don't like the title unification matches, but unifying a men's title with a women's title is way too overboard. Also, what is the current status of Natalia Markova as we're going into 2024? I don't know what her contract is looking like, whether she's done with the NWA or she will be done with the NWA. I know Camille's a free agent now. I know that. I don't know what the status is there, as whether she would be leaving. She probably should move on. I don't know. The title unification match, that's the first time I've heard of it. You're probably right. I have not heard that they're doing a unification match between Mims and Max the Impaler at Paranoia. That would make sense because they've teased it. That is a weird match to do. Listen, I mean, they just made the women's TV title. So unifying the two titles, NWA has way too many fucking titles. They can get rid of that secondary women's championship. Maybe they realized it was a bad idea. I don't know. They can keep it. I don't really give a shit. But it's an interesting match to do. I don't really feel one way about it or another, to be honest with you. At JDJCW555 from Twitter, he says, Happy New Year, Graham. Thank you. I appreciate that. You as well. First question, with Kevin Dunn leaving, what changes do you see happening in WWE, if any? Yeah, ding dong, the witch is dead is what I got to say to that. I mean, finally, right? So when we think of Kevin Dunn, we think of the camera shots, and that is a big thing. I don't think there's going to be any drastic differences immediately, maybe over time, because I feel like whoever's replacing him probably has the same mentality or mindset that he does. You know, with him being there for so long, he probably kind of wore off on the people that he works with. Hopefully not. I'm just saying logically that would make sense. But what I was going to say was that when we think of Kevin Dunn, or at least I do, I think of the camera shots and the quick cuts and all that other bullshit that's really ruined the product in the past 5, 10, 15 years or whatever. But another thing I think of that people kind of forget about is that he's one of the most important people in that company. Like, he's pretty high up there in terms of the ranking and where he's slotted in that pecking order in WWE. I remember Nick Khan saying a couple years ago in the interview with Ariel Helwani that he did back in 2021, I think. So we're going back a few years, and I just rewatched the clip the other day. He said that, like, because when Ariel asked, who has a say in the firings? He said, me. He basically said in so many words, him, Stephanie, at that time, Vince, Triple H, and Kevin Dunn. And I'm thinking, Kevin Dunn, like, why the fuck would he have any say? He just shoots the camera. But obviously he does a lot more than that. He controls the whole production side of WWE. So he seems like a piece of shit. I don't know the guy personally. He seems like a piece of shit. Jon Moxley fucking hates the guy, and that was from something that happened a couple of years ago. Not 10 years ago, not 20 years ago. and he's changed. This was more recent. He fucking hates Kevin Dunn. We all know how Jim Cornette feels about Kevin Dunn, but I'm talking about something that happened recently. So I would not be surprised that there were other people in the company that shared that same sentiment about Kevin Dunn, and now he's gone. So I'm glad he's gone. Hopefully the new change can help the company and the feel of the shows and the production. I don't know if Michael Cole and Wade Barrett being in the ring on Monday to start the show was kind of something they were trying out. I don't know if they would do that every week, obviously. Would that have been something that Kevin Dunn was against? Because, again, he has say in that matter. If he didn't like it, then they weren't doing it. So it's interesting how the production side of things will change going forward. Time will tell. Your second question, what are your thoughts on WWE returning to two-man commentary booths? I'm happy with it because I've never liked three-man commentary booths in wrestling. I agree. I don't like them either. I was actually disappointed when they changed the booths coming out of SummerSlam last year, and it was announced that Michael Cole was working both shows. I like Michael Cole's work in 2022, 2023, 2024. I just did not think he needed to be on both shows. That to me is just overkill, overexposure. The guy shouldn't have to work both shows. I think the only reason why they did that, and we kind of knew this at the time, was for him to kind of give more experience to Kevin Patrick. Kevin Patrick, they did not think was ready for a two-man booth on Raw, and now he's back to doing the two-man booth on SmackDown with Corey Graves. That was the team on Raw, was it not? Was it not Corey and... I don't remember. Was it not Corey and Kevin on SmackDown or Raw originally? I think. I don't remember really, but Raw now is Cole and Barrett. So it's pretty much the same booths as about a year ago, but just flipped. But I'm glad they're two-man booths. I fucking hate three-man booths. I think, unless it's a really great trio, which is rare. I know AEW does three-man booths. I don't like that either. They just have a lot of commentators they don't know what to do with. I think the two-man booth is better in my opinion. It's just too many voices at once, and people get drowned out, and it's just not necessary. At E138 from Twitter, they said their first question. We'll close out with these questions here. Do you think a Rock versus Rey Mysterio feud would have been great? Apparently, according to Bruce Pritchard, Rock tried to pitch a match with Rey Mysterio in 2003 after he became disappointed in his feud with Goldberg. That match would have been amazing. 03 Rock versus Rey would have been incredible. Rock could still go, really. Rey was obviously amazing. This was back when he was still younger, without the surgeries. That match would have been a blast. So I am bummed that we didn't get that match. That would have been a lot of fun. Rock and Goldberg was still fun. They paid it off, and Goldberg had to be Rock at Backlash. You don't tease the feud and then not do it. But it's a bummer we never got that match back at that time specifically. Their second question. Do you remember CM Punk versus The Shield at TLC 2013 and the Make Roman Look Strong story? I think anyone who heard that Punk podcast with Caban about a decade ago knows the Make Roman Look Strong story. He didn't share it on the infamous first one that he did with Colt. They did a follow-up podcast about a week later, and he shared the story on that one. So I do remember the match. They posted the match in full recently on YouTube. I want to go back and watch it. I've only seen it like maybe once or twice. I watched it when it happened, and then I watched it back when I reviewed the show years later. And that was like a fun little match. The Shield lost, though. So that's where the Make Roman Look Strong story comes in. They were really adamant about making Roman look strong. This was ahead of the Shield split they were probably going to do for WrestleMania, a Shield triple threat match or whatever, or at least Roman versus Dean. I don't know what the fuck Rollins would have done. But they were already teasing tension within the Shield around that point. And they really wanted to make Roman look strong. So they told Punk many, many times. A lot of people came up to him earlier in the day. And it's a lot better in his words, so check out the story on Cole's podcast from a decade ago. But in his own words, he had mentioned that a lot of people came up to him going into that match. Make sure you make Roman look strong. But the funny thing about that match, and it's a handicap match, a 3-on-1 handicap match. Punk won. Punk won the match, and Punk was like, fuck, man, if you want me to make Roman look strong, why don't you just have him win? And they were like, no, we don't want to do that. But we do want to make Roman look strong. Well, it's like, dude, then stop fucking telling me to make Roman look strong. Just put him over at that point. It's a really funny story. I got to go back and watch that match because I enjoyed that match. That was probably one of the only good matches on that otherwise abysmal pay-per-view. The late 2013 pay-per-views were just fucking terrible. One of the worst string of shows I have ever seen in my life. Next question. Would you consider 2023 in WWE one of your favorite years? I would. I said that last week on the Year in Review podcast I did with Jamie Lee Mack and RJ and WrestleRant Radio as well. I mentioned that 2023 overall was a great year for WWE. I went to a lot of shows personally. I was there for the first 3 pay-per-views, the first 3 PLEs, Rumble, Chamber, and Mania, and all 3 were great shows, had great moments. SummerSlam was a fun time as well. And NXT really improved. Raw and SmackDown improved a lot. Triple H took over complete creative control of the company. He did some fun stuff in 2023. The pay-per-views were overall awesome throughout the year, and a lot of great content. Not perfect. A lot of things I would change, but overall a really good year for WWE, and certainly one of my favorites. Probably the best overall year they've had since 2016, if not better. 2016 was also one of my favorite years as a fan. I would say 08, 2011. I've answered this question before, but now that 2023 is behind us, my favorite years would probably be 08 was when I first started watching. 2011, specifically for the, heel punk summer of punk stuff. 2016, a lot of great stuff in 2016, and 2023. So that would be, 4 years? That would be my Mount Rushmore. If I had to pick a fifth year, it would probably have been 2018 sucked, 2019 sucked, 2020 sucked, 2021 sucked. 2022 had good stuff. I wouldn't say 2022 necessarily. I'm trying to think. 2022 had its moments, but not really until the second half of the year. Maybe 2014 was kind of bad. 2013 had its moments. I don't know. It would probably be those four. If I had to pick a fifth year as far as being my favorite, it might be 2015 because I really liked Mania that year. Overall, I enjoyed 2015, and that was really the rise of NXT. So probably 2015, but that would be like 5 behind all the other ones, I would say. His next question was, Edge's TNT Championship reign, one of AEW's best. Had good crowds, no backstage drama for his entire reign, and put over a younger wrestler at the end. Do you think that he should win it one more time? I do, and I do. I agree with that. He had a great run. It was practically perfect. And you forgot to mention he won it in an amazing match as well. So 10 out of 10 would do again. Last question from @U13 and the last question for the first episode of 2024. Do you think the Awesome Truth was good in 2011? I do. I actually really liked Awesome Truth. That was a fun time. Again, overall, 2011 was not a great year, I would say. But I liked the Awesome Truth stuff because it coincided with the summer of Punk, them thinking there was a conspiracy, the Truth conspiracy thing. Miz kind of went out on the conspiracy. They had great foils in Punk and Cena and eventually The Rock. They lost in anticlimactic fashion at Survivor Series. That was disappointing. And it got cut short way too soon. Awesome Truth was really only a thing for like 2 or 3 months. It was not very long. Maybe in August. It didn't really get going until like September. September. They got it going in September. They got fired in October in storyline. Got brought back, invaded. And then they broke up in November after the Rock and Cena match because Truth got suspended. It probably would have kept going a little bit longer had they won or had they not broken up at that point. But they didn't. And when he came back, they turned Truth babyface, and that was the end of Awesome Truth. But yeah, I really enjoyed Awesome Truth. I enjoyed the promos, the storyline. They kind of fucked it because they had potential to be something really cool, and it never really amounted to anything. But I did really enjoy Awesome Truth, and I thought it was fun seeing them back together on Monday's Raw as well. Thank you guys for sending in all your questions to kick off the new year. Happy New Year to all of you guys, and hope you guys have a very happy and successful, prosperous 2023. If you want to send in a question to the show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Happy New Year again, and I'll catch your ass down the road.